Hi everyone, welcome to Playtime Online. I'm Amna Siddiqui, the producer and moderator of this program. Today we'll be looking at how cultural institutions are taking on the challenge of reimagining their roles in 21st century learning. This afternoon we're learning about Institute of Play's exciting partnership with the Museum of the Moving Image, along with what makes an institutional collaboration like this one so valuable. We'll also be learning about the Institute and Museum's latest project together, the Game Design Network, so be sure to stick around for that. Now, let's meet today's participants. Could I have everyone introduce themselves? Chris, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Chris Wisniewski, and I am the Deputy Director for Education and Visitor Experience here at Museum of the Moving Image.
Awesome. Criswell?
I am Criswell Lappin. I'm the Creative Director of the Institute of Play, and I co-lead ABLE, a lab at the Institute of Play.
Great. And Leah? Oh, I think you're muted.
Hi.
Okay, we can hear you.
This is Leah Gilliam. I'm the project director at Mozilla's Hive NYC Learning Network.
Great, thank you. So before we get started, I'd like to remind our viewers that at any point you'd like to participate and ask today's speakers a question, just click on the blue participate text under this video on the right-hand side. We'll be spending the last 10 to 15 minutes of the webinar answering questions during our Q&A session. So let's open up today's discussion with this idea of 21st century learning. Criswell and Leah, I'm wondering if you guys can talk a bit about 21st century learning and what it means for institutions to have the opportunity to create new and meaningful learning experiences for students.
Sure. I'm happy to start. Criswell, did you want to start?
Well, I can just talk broadly that the Institute is very interested in this concept of connected learning and this idea that that schools are not the only place where teens or students can acquire skills and knowledge, and we see a really large opportunity for our work to expand into cultural institutions that are aligned with our values and are also intrinsically interested in promoting learning within the institution themselves.
The work that we do at the Hive Learning Network is really about bringing different organizations together to design learning experiences for teens in New York City. And the organizations that we work with are everything from museums to small, after-school clubs, to computer coding clubs, to Museum of the Moving Image, to you guys at the Institute of Play, Willie Mae Rock Camp, American Museum of Natural History. It's a really wide group of organizations and people. And one of the things that all of our work is really based upon is that the kind of learning that youth and teens and everyone does in the out-of-school learning space can be really rigorous and can really pull out some specific skills. So critical thinking, problem solving, a real focus on creation and innovation. And we're really interested in looking at ways that particularly digital media and the kinds of tools that people are working with already or playing with in their out of school time can really impact the kinds of things that they're learning in general. So we're really interested in bringing people together to create learning experiences and help them explore those ideas.
And Institute of Play, just to build on that, has been running out-of-school programs for a couple of years now. The first few years it was mostly focused on things that were happening within the walls of the school, but quickly that evolved into after-school and summer programs such as Short Circuits, which was an after-school engineering program that we put together about 2 years ago and have a week-long curriculum built out for that. We also had a summer program last summer that we ran called Design, Art, and Code, and then the one that we're probably most excited about it is Mobile Quest, which used to be an onboarding program for new 6th graders where they would come in and spend a week prior to starting school to get sort of introduced into the concepts that that our middle school that we started Quest to Learn, the concepts that they were going to be introduced to in that school, and that was a week-long week-long program where the kids learned sort of how to use mobile phones to create geolocation-based games. But that has evolved into something really exciting, into Mobile Quest CoLab, which we ran a pilot program with this summer through AIU, Allegheny Intermediate Unit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and that was a 2-week program where we divided the first week up into professional development for teachers only. Then the second week, we actually brought in kids, and the teachers used the PD that they learned that first week in the second week while they taught the kids in the after-school program. And we see that kind of partnership and those kinds of events being really significant for us moving forward. And then we also last spring, as sort of the impetus to this current partnership, engaged with MMI for a program as well. I can let Chris talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, but before we get to that specific project, Chris, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the Museum of the Moving Image, its collection, and the mission.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the museum is actually the only museum in the country devoted to the art, history, and technology of film, television, and digital media. And we are in September celebrating our 25th anniversary. So we've been around for a quarter century. And one thing that should be mentioned sort of as a preface to this discussion is that the museum is chartered as an educational institution. So education is really at the heart of our mission and a core part of everything that we do. Digital media is also at the heart of our mission. So 1 year after we opened in 1988, we presented the first museum exhibition about video games. It was called Hot Circuits, a video arcade. And we were also the first museum in the world that we know of, at least, to collect video games. So we've been doing this for a while, and you know, in the museum world, there have been some high-profile exhibitions and some high-profile institutions that are collecting video games now, and that's all a relatively new thing. But we kind of feel like we're in some ways the old kid on the block when it comes to thinking about museums and video games, digital games. So that's sort of a part of the fabric of the museum, and our executive director, Carl Goodman, is a digital media person by training and trade. So in 1993, Carl, a lot of firsts here, Carl was the first person at a museum that we're aware of to be given the title Curator of Digital Media. So you know, we've always seen that as being a core part of our mission, and the fact that he is the museum's executive director, I think, reflects the importance of digital media to what we do. Now, in terms of informal learning or out-of-school time learning, you know, all of the learning that happens in museum is out of school. But you know, when I started at the museum back in 2005, we were and have continued to be booked to capacity with school kids coming for visits. So you know, the sort of the typical museum education program, which is the field trip based programming, that was something that we were at capacity with. And one of the things that I've really worked on in my 8 years at the museum has been to grow all of the programming that takes place outside of the school day. So the after-school programs, summer camps, weekend workshops, and design jams. And we really went from very little back in 2005 to now a robust menu of activities that vary in terms of the time of day, the format and length, but all take place sort of outside outside of the context of a school-based visit. And that has, I think, that's happened for two reasons. One, from a sort of institutional and strategic reason. We were already booked to capacity during the school day, so in terms of growth and areas for growth, it was sort of a natural for us. But also, it sort of dovetailed with a larger trend in the field, and all of the exciting and innovative work that is happening around the country, and certainly in New York City around like cultural organizations and institutions finding ways of providing learning opportunities that range in their level of formality outside of the context of school programs.
Great, thank you. Leah, you touched on the Hive Learning Network, but I was wondering if you could specifically talk about its mission too. And,
sure.
Yeah.
So the Hive Learning Network is a network that's focused here in New York City. There are several Hive networks that have developed in Pittsburgh and Toronto, also in Chicago. But we think of ourselves as a citywide learning lab. We work with educators, technologists, geeks, designers, artists, scientists, youth development experts from a number of different organizations coming together to collaborate and design learning experiences for youth. The experiences that most people are working on are all, somehow involving technology or considering technology in their terms of their content, in terms of their approach, and we tend to fund projects that are anywhere from 6 months to 2 years in length, and primarily really focusing on teens and a little bit older here in New York City. The key kind of idea behind the work that we do really is to look at the ways that youth are learning today and to really add some rigor and some kind of meaningful collaboration and sharing into the out-of-school learning space. We're really interested in the kind of a catalytic funding model. So we fund projects and sort of see them through their development phase, and really hope that the youth who are in the projects, the mentors, the educators who are also working in the projects will try out some new things that they maybe wouldn't have the opportunity to do before. We'll work together and collaborate, and that we're really kind of creating a space for educators to come together, for youth to come together as co-designers, and for people who maybe have talked or have some ideas that they would love to pursue. We're trying to really build that time out so that they can pursue that. So we're really happy that one of the projects that we've sponsored for this most recent request for proposals is a project out of the Institute of Play and brings together the Institute of Play and Museum of the Moving Image to stalwart Hive Learning Network members.
Yeah, and can you talk about how cultural institutions have a role to play within Hive's network?
Yeah, I mean, there really are a range of institutions within the network, and specifically, we have public libraries, we have the YMCA. We really look to the cultural institutions to help us figure out what youth can be thinking about, what youth can be learning, how to really help us find ways to engage critically with the kind of material that youth encounter every day, to really add some rigor to the creation and the kind of content development process. So we really look to some of the collaborations that we fund to really engage a range of different spaces where youth learn, to engage a range of different techniques and approaches.
Great, and this is a question kind of posed for all three of you. I'm just wondering about what the value of Hive Network partners is working together.
Well, from our experience, we know that our message is more powerful when we partner with other people, for one thing, and also just the idea of a network of organizations that are grouped together, that have sort of common values and common principles, but have different areas of expertise. So the whole reason to have a conversation like this around a partnership or a product with an organization like MMI is because they have a collection, a content expertise that we can put a point of view on. We can bring a game-like learning, our perspective on game-like learning, into their environment. Sort of work collaboratively with them to help promote promote both their message and our message.
Right. I would just sort of second what Criswell was saying, that you know, there's such tremendous value in learning from one another's expertise, and you know, we've tried to be in thinking about the projects that we take on in the Hive context. We've tried to be really strategic about where our institutional strengths are and where we can really benefit from a sort of deeper collaboration with other Hive members, and hopefully come away from the experience having built out competence you know, within the institution, and also sort of sharing our resources and our expertise with others. I would also add that you know, the truth of the matter is that, you know, the youth that we educate don't, you know, they don't belong to us. You know, they move across learning content, includes moving across Hive members. And so I think that there's also something very powerful about the idea that, you know, for the young people who participate in this kind of programming, that that the organizations that provide that programming are sort of aware of one another's efforts, and sort of helping to create an ecosystem that is all the richer for that sort of shared knowledge and expertise.
Great. Leah or Criswell, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, one of the things that we're finding is really powerful for a lot of the people that are working with the network is just the range of opportunities that people have. There are the collaborations, but there are also just sort of the opportunities to do professional development workshops, to find out about new tools, to meet people that they haven't met before. And I think also, you know, in today's culture, it's really important that organizations have the time and the time and the kind of bandwidth to see what they have in common, to work together, to toss around ideas, and then to maybe pick up on them later, and then also really to make a few mistakes. You know, one of the things that we kind of build into our system is some time to explore, to prototype, to discover what might be interesting, and to work continuously with the same collaborators, and to bring in more collaborators, and to scale your project in a meaningful and a thoughtful way. So, you know, just to kind of echo what Chris is saying, what really seems to be a successful approach for many of the institutions that get involved with the Hive Learning Network is this sort of strategic approach, is really thinking about, you know, what do we do well, how will it benefit us to work with someone else. And we find that a lot of the cultural institutions that we work with have a really different approach. You know, often they are offering their space, or they're offering, you know, their collection, and really letting a wide range of youth that the network reaches, you know, kind of come into that space and benefit from it. So we've done some great collaborations with Museum of Moving Image, with American Museum of Natural History, a lot of different spaces where we're able to bring youth in who might not have ordinarily seen the space.
It's also a way for organizations like ours, instead of having to build communities from scratch, to be able to cultivate community relationships. So we know that MMI already has a community that follows them for a particular reason. If we're interested in engaging a community that has an interest in what MMI has to offer, then it's a really strategically, it's a really efficient channel for us to a pipeline for us to build, so that our communities can connect to each other.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback on that. And Chris and Criswell, I want to ask you what the Institute Museum collaboration has been like. I guess I'll ask you, Chris. The museum ran a summer camp with Institute of Play. I think it was summer 2011. I was wondering if you could talk about that camp and how that experience led to the most recent collaboration, which is the Game Design Network.
Sure. I mean, you know, all of these things can be put into many different contexts. I did want to pick up on something that Leah mentioned previously, though, because I think it was a really crucial point.
Sure.
One of the great things about these Hive-supported projects is that they are understood to be sort of prototypes in a way, at least at the sort of like the introductory level, and sort of supported from prototype phase to larger implementation. You know, having the flexibility to try something is really important if you want to be innovative, and it's really difficult to innovate when one feels sort of beholden to a stakeholder in the form of, say, a funder who's expecting something that's like very specific in terms of result. And you know, that's not to say that we all don't you know, really try to deliver like the best possible result in every project that we undertake. But we also understand that these projects are innovative and sometimes speculative, and part of the great experience of collaborating with other organizations is seeing what works and also what doesn't, and using that to inform future projects, and I've appreciated that. And sort of pivoting off of that, you know, this collaboration with Institute of Play also came out of a sort of a longer-term context. So we certainly, even prior to the camp, we were very much aware of the work that the Institute had been doing. And, you know, I had mentioned our executive director before. He had, you know, he'd known Katie Salen, the executive director of the Institute of Play, for a long time. There was an existing relationship there. And back when the Institute was working on GameStar Mechanic, we collaborated on some beta testing here at the museum. And when in 2011 we were invited to sort of apply to become members of the Hive, and we were looking at Hive members that we might want to work with on a project that would become our sort of introductory Hive project. Working again with the Institute appealed to us, partly because we were very familiar and impressed with the work, and then partly because one of the things that we knew is that, you know, obviously, you know, we have video games in our collection. We have had learning activities related to video games taking place here at the museum in various contexts since, we'll call it 2000, well, in various contexts for much longer, but in slightly more elaborated contexts since like 2006, 2007, and we had built out, particularly in terms of like camp and course curricula, you know, a nice set of activities that were really focused on computation and computer programming and game programming, and we saw the Institute as having a specific expertise and a lot of experience when it came to developing curriculum around you know, games as systems, design thinking, and we found that very appealing as a sort of supplement to what we already had, and we were eager to sort of learn from them. So we received a Spark grant through the Hive to do a week-long what we called Game Design Lab with teams here at the museum. It was actually in April of 2012. Collaborated with some really fabulous people, including Leah Gilliam, on that project, and you know, we thought it was a very successful experience, and we, you know, in addition to leaving with some new thinking around how we could structure our camps going forward, because it was a slightly different approach to a camp than what we had taken before. We also left with very specific activities that we've used in a lot of different contexts since that camp in 2012. So that was a really great collaboration, and you know, it left us thinking that there would be an opportunity to sort of build on that experience of working with Institute of Play. And very specifically, all of this was sort of gestating at the same time that we were doing a lot of reflection here on how there are people out there in the city and sort of in the world, teachers or educators in at other organizations and cultural institutions who are interested in you know, developing learning content around games and gaming, but who don't necessarily have the content expertise or the pedagogical background that would make them feel comfortable sort of implementing that on their own. And so we were kind of interested in collaborating with Institute of Play on a resource that could take advantage of games that we had in our collection and also potentially meet a sort of like a wider field need to provide learning activities that could potentially be replicated beyond the four walls of the museum. And maybe at this point I should hand it off to Criswell, and you can kind of talk about how you guys sort of came to the project that we're working on.
Yeah, so just to build on what Chris was saying, like, so while all that's happening at MMI, here at the Institute, we had a series of deliverables at the end of, design deliverables at the end of 2012 for a Gates grant. One of which was a publishing platform that would promote game design challenges that had been designed by professional game designers for teens, sort of purposefully pushing those. It would be a channel to sort of push those platforms, to push those out to teens who are interested and in a self-directed type of way. And I believe Don Miller, who is a learning specialist here, was in regular touch with Chris back in the early part of 2013, and started back and forth about potential collaborative opportunities to build off of the relationship that we already had. And so this product, Game Kit, we sort of brought that to their attention as an effective tool or platform to be able to do exactly what Chris was talking about, which is to take their content expertise and wrap it around through a filter of game design. So the whole project in this way is a little bit meta, because you're coming up with game design challenges based on video games. But we thought it was a perfect opportunity to pilot a partnership, which we thought would develop into a proof of concept for us. And that evolved into this game design network that we reached out and sort of reached out to the Hive. And we're very excited when they decided to put some muscle behind it, because we felt like it would be create a digital platform that would aggregate these game design challenges and would allow for any organization's content or collection to be promoted through it. It allows us to build out sort of the 2.0 version of this product, which was sort of in very early 1.0 beta at the beginning of this year. It will allow us to add community feature set to it. It will allow us to create curated channels, which will allow branded content to live on the site. So MMI's challenges will be identified as MMI specific, which I think they're very excited about. And it's the first step, and for us to expanding this product into a much larger community-based platform. And I think that's why it was so interesting. That's why the Hive was so interested in it, is because once we sort of run this out as a proof of concept, there's no reason that I think it couldn't be, that step couldn't be repeated over and over again.
Yeah, Crystal, do you want to show our viewers what GameKit looks like, the website, and maybe walk us through a challenge?
Yeah, let's do that really quick. I'm going to click the magic screen share button. And everybody see?
Yep.
Great. So this is the home page as it exists right now. You see up at the top we've got a little bit of branding and then a featured challenge. What we produced by the end of last year were these first 4 challenges, which all together sort of act as warm-up exercises to get a teen started into the basic principles of game design. And what's nice about them is that it really ranges from paper-based tabletop games. So you're designing with like very simple materials, all the way to the one on the far right here uses GameStar mechanic. So it provides a really nice scope of possibilities that range all the way from high tech to very low tech. And I mentioned Mobile Quest Collab earlier in the conversation, and we created a challenge specific to that event. So this was a challenge that our friends in Pittsburgh ran during the 2-week camp, both with the adults and the students. And so you can see you have some top-level information across the top here. It gives you basic parameters, how long it'll take, what level it is, how many players it takes, the type and the platform. There's usually a hero image, which sometimes is a slideshow, sometimes is a video. In this case, it's just a standard standalone image. And then we really break down sort of simple visual steps, usually anywhere between six to 8 steps on how to go about designing your game. In this case, it was a hybrid game. You had to use an app and a physical component at the same time to create an outcome. And we got really fantastic results, especially from the kids when we ran this in Pittsburgh this summer. Underneath the visual, the sort of kid-directed visual approach at the top, there's also a dive deeper section if you wanted to extend the activity, and then there's a for educators section that's sort of a little bit of professional development, has some resources down here that you see highlighted. And then you have the ability to post a comment or link to post a link to your solution. That's one of the features that we're really excited about being able to build out with this most recent iteration and the partnership that we're currently engaged with MMI, is to be able to build out that community features, which will allow allow to share their solutions with their networks.
Awesome. So Institute of Play is creating brand new challenges specifically for the museum. I was wondering if you guys could maybe share a little bit of what that's looking like.
Sure. We actually have an event tomorrow where we're going to be play testing the content, testing out the content of some of the challenges that we've been in development. We've had a couple of site visits where we came over and took a look at the collection and the spaces that MMI has to offer with Greg Trefry, who's our lead game designer. And we have just been sort of creating ideas based on their collection and sort of batting them around back and forth. And I think it's been a pretty seamless, pretty collaborative effort so far, where we're just all working off the same document. And we're looking forward to sort of this first of many tests that we're going to be doing over the course of the next 3 to 4 months. Tomorrow afternoon is a slightly more informal one, but at the end of the month there'll be a much larger one that will take the shape of take the form of a game design jam that I'll let Chris talk a little bit more about.
Sure. So I would second what Criswell just said. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is we'll have our first beta tests with real kids. So the museum has some high school interns who have been around for most of the summer, and we're just asking them to give us, an hour or so of their time to be the first, the first guinea pigs on the first challenge that we're building out. And we basically the goal of the project is to come up with a set of 3 challenges, and each of those challenges is going to be tested in the context of a game design jam. And we're actually pretty, I think we have a sort of roadmap for what all 3 of the challenges are going to look like at this point. But we're starting with one, and we're going to test some activities tomorrow, and then use what comes out of tomorrow to develop a curriculum for this jam that we're hosting on August 30th, the Friday before Labor Day. It's a tough time of year, but we have a nice community of teens who have participated in programs like this in the past, and we're right now doing the first bit of outreach for the August 30th jam, and then we'll probably follow up with another jam each month. So the great thing about that is that it allows us to sort of sequence the work and to really start to pilot these activities with real kids here at the museum, while we also start to build out the online resource. So.
Awesome. Leah, we haven't heard from you for a little bit, so I'm just wondering, what do you think about this, about the project, the idea, the process?
So we were really excited about GameKit when we first heard about it, in part because for a lot of the events that we run, as as a larger part as our work with Mozilla, we're really interested in ways that we can really make sure that people are using the web and using online resources in different communities in a really active, proactive way, where they're actually making things and not just thinking about consuming them. So the idea of having an available online resource where youth could go and find game design challenges and then feedback about the kind of games that they were building, maybe have some kind of interaction with professional game designers, seemed really interesting. And so we thought that the idea of being able to kind of direct the challenges that you were developing and then maybe create a channel of your own might be a really interesting way for professional game designers and also young game designers, youth as co-designers, to get involved as well. And we've worked with the Institute of Play, and we've worked with other organizations that have been doing game design in this kind of in a kind of a short burst of activity kind of way. So whether it's a maker party or whether it's a pop-up, we've involved game design, and we've really found that to be a challenge to try and use the time wisely and to try to get youth collaborating together in a meaningful way. So we really like the idea of having an online space where you could also send youth. If you're working with youth, you can also point to this resource and say, listen, if you want to go back or you want to learn more about game design, here's this place where you can go. And so the range of activities and the range of approaches that we saw in GameKit were something that were really interesting to people. And then particularly just when it comes to the kind of work that the Hive Digital Media Learning Fund is looking to support, it is really this work that has this kind of extensible component to it. So if a youth is, makes their way to the Museum of the Moving Image and then has an online resource later where they can continue to explore game design, it's a really great way to kind of continue the learning and to make that space more attractive. So we're really interested in this first prototype and seeing how these game design events go, and then also, really what happens next, like what happens when you start really involving different communities who might take game design or take the game design tools or use the platform as a way to collaborate and explore the world around them.
Awesome. Chris or Crystal, do you have anything to add?
I'll just go back to build on some of what Chris was talking about and partnering with like-minded souls, and the whole idea of being able to test and iterate often to allow us to get to a place where we know we have a much more viable product, and knowing that we'll be partnering with another organization that is very open about putting pencil to paper first before diving too far into the process, and making sure that we actually get the game design challenge right first before publishing it or before designing what the challenge even looks like. I think is a really viable piece of the process to us. We've gone through multiple iterations and have failed wonderfully a few times with this product already. And one of the biggest course corrections that we made was the original platform was supposed to be for teens, sort of at a self-paced rate, and we still think that there'll be an uptick for that. But during the development process, for some of the challenges, we had the opportunity to run workshops as we do on a semi-regular basis with the Institute. And so we actually used GameKit in its very primitive state to run workshops for the Kansas City Art Institute, for CUNY, for the New York Department of Youth and Community Development, all within the spring. And we found that it was really a tool that kind of acted as a catalyst for us to build a whole half-day event around. And so that started getting us to think about how do we use this as a piece of our as an asset for us to engage partnerships for not only for partnerships like this, but for even event-based partnerships. And so I think the game jams in a way are sort of like a micro version of those kinds of things. And I think as we move forward, it wouldn't surprise me to see GameKit take on a more sort of event-based role where we can promote it for a specific time period and then generate some significant interest so that we get a community sort of coming together and rallying around a particular challenge or set of challenges.
Cool. So I'm going to switch gears here. And Crystal, I was wondering if you could talk about ABLE. This is the Institute of Play's newest lab, and this is under ABLE. That's what's fostering the Institute of Play Museum of Moving Image partnership. Could you kind of talk about what ABLE is and the purpose that it serves?
Sure. So the Institute now has 3 labs under its hat. The one that is sort of best known is Mission Lab, which is our lab that's embedded into Quest to Learn, which is a public New York City high school, middle and high school that's in Chelsea, and that's been around for, this will be its 5th year. Middle of last year, we started GlassLab, which is a lab that's embedded into EA, the video game company, and they're looking at how to embed assessment into digital games and have a number of exciting and hopefully successful products that will be coming out in the fall, as early as this fall, including SimCity EDU. And then we have the newest lab, which is ABLE, which is a really diverse set of colleagues that have come together to be able to take the learning that has been happening inside the school and sharing it with the outside world. So our basic premise is to sort of cultivate 21st century learning communities. And we feel like we can do that in a number of ways. We ended the year last year with a number of different assets and tools that we had designed and developed, and felt like in the winter and the spring of this year that we needed to assemble a team that could sort of put their heads around all of those together and create a platform that would allow for us to be able to connect to and cultivate the communities that we've been talking about. And this is just one example. This project is one example of sort of how that's being made manifest.
Great, and we're going to move on to the Q&A portion in just 1 second, but my last question for you, Criswell, is what types of institutions is ABLE looking to partner with?
So obviously from the crew that's on this call, we have a number of partnerships that are going on with cultural institutions. We're interested in having conversations with any organization, business, or government agency that might have an interest in game-like learning, both at the teen and the adult level. So it's a pretty wide range of opportunities and type of capabilities that we have internally here. We're able to generate digital tools. We specialize in storytelling. We can put together events, as we've mentioned before, and all to sort of bring sort of our perspective on game-like learning to any particular organization or event. So.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the question and answer portion. Our first question is from Mark, and he asks, how does Hive choose its partners, and what types of support does it provide for them? Oh, Leah, I think you're muted.
So the Hive is a network that has a membership model. So right now we have 56 organizations that are part of the network, and we have a number of different kind of routes that people join the network. Some people have been sort of curated in the kind of early days when we were first getting started. We ran some design charrettes and really brought together some of the educators and thinkers and designers that we knew of in the New York area, primarily as a result of MacArthur's Digital Media Learning Initiative. So we've now moved to a model that's kind of an application model. So we've just done a big round of applications and moved from about 30 institutions up to 56 institutions. The members of the network for us really provide the kind of outreach that we're seeking. Anyone who's a member of the Hive Network can partner with any other institution across New York City, any other nonprofit organization, and so our partners bring in a lot of different collaborators, whether it's social justice organizations or educators or other arts organizations. The landscape is very wide in terms of the different organizations that our members work with. We support the members in a number of different ways. The New York Community Trust provides financial support for the projects and for the collaborative projects through a collaborative fund, and then the leadership team at the Hive supports the projects in helping with technology integration, helping to recruit youth, really supporting and kind of keeping the network going through professional development workshops, meetups, that kind of thing, and also just sort of making sure that everyone in the network is successfully reaching their project goals.
Great, thank you. So the next question comes from Gary, and he asks, will new partners also receive custom-made game kit challenges? I'm assuming that's probably new partners of Institute of Play.
Yeah, so we see sort of two outcomes at the end of this. One is that yes, if you chose to engage the Institute of Play to create a game design challenge for your content area, then we are more than willing to have that conversation. We have a few conversations that are ongoing right now that are both game design challenge connected with an event. So even building a challenge specific to someone's area of expertise, and then having us run a workshop based on that challenge is one offer. The other outcome for this project that we're on now is that we hope to do is to be able to create a template through our process with MMI that would potentially enable future partners to be able to design their own challenges. That probably is a little bit farther out down the line, but you know, one of the models that we sort of subscribe to here at the Institute is taking people from players to modders to designers, and so right now they would obviously be players if they participate in what's being offered through GameKit right now, but in the future we would hope that we could turn those players into designers themselves that would be able to create their own challenges.
Great, thanks, Criswell. So the last question is from Angela, and she asks, can you give a few concrete examples of real-world skills your after-school programs, like the Game Design Network, offer kids that schools aren't able to? Does anybody want to take that?
You want me to start on that one too? So I'll talk about it from our perspective, and then I bet Chris can probably add on to it. So if you look at the kind of opportunities that we've been able to put together with our after-school and summer-based programs, a lot of those sort of build off of sort of learning-based topics that are taught in school, but maybe the school day doesn't offer enough opportunity to dive deep into an exploration into engineering or into geolocation-based games or into learning 3 or 4 different types of coding languages in order to develop an art-based portfolio. So I think it's really quite often about not only bandwidth but also sort of a layer of 21st century skills that the Institute promotes itself with, like collaboration and critical thinking and systems thinking, which sometimes don't get integrated into the traditional school model. So these programs and these skills are skills that we believe that students need to have right now, not in the future, not 10 years from now, but in the connected world that we all live in. That we know that we're all using them, and we're trying to enable and prep teens to have those skills so that they can find success when they go off to college or go into the workforce.
Great. Does anybody want to add on? Oh, okay, Chris.
Yeah, I do. So the museum is an interesting case in that we're, you know, our mission is about digital media. As opposed to at a school where integrating the, you know, like the creation of moving image media, whether that be game creation or, you know, like a video program or animation or what have you. Like normally, I think in the school context, that's still being used principally to teach, you know, curricular content, because that, you know, that is an imperative that teachers can't necessarily get around. We have the flexibility, really, of sort of, in this instance, you know, games for game's sake, or you know, like movies for movie's sake, or animation for animation's sake, or what have you. And that might sound frivolous, but what it allows us to do is instead to make the learning goals really more focused on sort of skills and competencies rather than content. So, you know, we don't need kids to make a game about ecology. or recycling or global warming. They can make a game about whatever they want, and it's still sort of on mission for us. But what we're hoping is that in the process of making the game, they'll learn about collaboration, critical thinking, these other 21st century skills to which Criswell already alluded. You know, we happen to believe that there is an affinity between the way that games work and the way that people learn, and so sort of developing a set of skills around the design of a game can result in real learning outcomes that are applicable beyond this subject area, which kids do have an interest in. So we're able to sort of platform off of the interest to engage young people in learning activities that hopefully result in the acquisition of skills that do make them college and career ready in a meaningful way. I mean, there are hard skills too, you know, so I had mentioned before that we sort of, when we started doing game making here at the museum, the emphasis was on computation and programming. I mean, those are real hard skills that kids still come out of our programs having acquired. But I think in a lot of ways we've always kind of joked that it's a little bit of a bait and switch. We take the interest that kids have in video games and we use it to sort of get them involved in a set of design-based learning activities that do result in really valuable skills that aren't necessarily always allowed to be the sort of the front and center learning goals of a school-based activity, just because the curricular focus always has to be sort of present, and the content always has to be sort of driving the process as well.
Great. Thank you, guys. So we're out of time. So join us for the next episode of Playtime Online Thursday, August 29th for a crash course in data visualizations and how GlassLab is using them to communicate student learning. We'll be sharing methods for conveying learning along with some of GlassLab's most interesting visualizations. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us on Playtime Online today. It was a really great conversation. For updates on Playtime Online, please sign up for our mailing list. Just click the Join Us at the top of this page. Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you like what we're doing, please spread the word. Have a great evening. See you guys later.